The Wire's creator, David Simon, has got rather unconventional views of music in TV and film. In his endless pursuit of realism at all costs, Simon does away with most non-diegetic music, or music that doesn't actually exist within the universe of the show. He once said that, in real life, you don't get to punch the button on the song that you want to be playing when you get into that bar fight, when you're in a car chase. What you don't want is to script a song that speaks to the moment. If the lyrics are dead on with the story, it's redundant. One of the sound editors on The Wire, who, it should be noted, works on the sound and not the music, said that if Simon were to write a sitcom, he wouldn't put a laugh track in it. That's just the vision he has for the sonic world of his art. One of the show's directors, Ed Bianchi, commented on this, saying that the lack of score makes The Wire feel more raw, more real, with nothing telling you what to feel, nothing being, as he put it, sweetened. One example of this comes in Season 1, Episode 8, where McNulty loses his kids after telling them to follow Stringer Bell. As he's in his car, frantically searching for them, The Lion Sleeps Tonight comes on the radio, totally undermining the drama of the moment. There is no dramatic music, no musical tension built, because that's not how the world works. David Simon has said that he's particularly proud of this musical choice. Of course, a total lack of music could make the show feel sonically empty, because real life has music too, believe it or not. So if a scene felt sonically empty, a character would often put a CD on, or a boombox would be inserted into the scene, rather than adding music as a non-diegetic score. Except for the end of season montages, one of the exceptions of the show's preference for diegetic music comes in episode 6 of season 1, where Avon visits the pit. This features an originally composed piece of music, alongside uncharacteristically dramatic slow motion. Why here? Well, it's not the only moment of the show to use slow motion, but it certainly is one of the only ones. This, combined with the non-diegetic music, and the fact that the scene is shot at golden hour, gives it a far more cinematic and unrealistic feeling than the vast majority of The Wire, giving it the feeling of an almost mythical figure of the drug kingpin coming down into the world of mortals, into the low-rises in the pit. If you're enjoying this video so far, please do feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, and maybe even subscribe. It really helps the channel out and I really appreciate it. Also, this is a spoiler warning for all 5 seasons of The Wire. The Wire's most iconic character is everyone's favourite Baltimore stick-up man, Omar Little, spectacularly portrayed by the late, great Michael K. Williams. Whether, like Bunk and Levy, you view him as a parasitical bloodsucker profiteering from a destructive drug trade, or like the children of the Baltimore streets, a ghetto Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and sharing amongst his ever-changing band of merry men, virtually everyone loves it when Omar's on screen. He comes with a long, black coat, a scar across his face, and a large shotgun. But Omar also comes with a piece of music. Although he doesn't actually whistle the piece as much in the series as one might expect, Omar's character is widely associated with his whistling of The Farmer in the Dell, a short folk melody that has become synonymous with the character. He sings it, although not perfectly, roughly in E major. Well, I say he sings it. Michael K. Williams can't actually whistle, so they were forced to get the whistle from elsewhere, in the end getting it from a Loop group member named Susan, who's an actor and John Waters' personal assistant. But as someone on Reddit pointed out, Susan's Coming Yo doesn't quite have the same aura to it. It's about as basic as a folk melody can get. 2 phrases, one rising, then one falling back to the tonic. The tune originated in Western Germany, where it was known as, and excuse my pronunciation, Es fuhr ein Bauer ins Haus, or a farmer went into the wood. Since wood in Old English roughly translated as den, this is how the English language version became the farmer's in his den, and then the farmer in the dell. The melody was originally sung as part of a singing game, amusement at the annual fairs, a game for people to get to know each other, and the song certainly heralds getting to know Omar in the show. I referenced Omar as a Robin Hood type character earlier, stealing from the rich and giving to his Baltimore equivalent of the Merry Men. Omar's whole presence in the show feels mythical, like he's a living, breathing piece of Baltimore street folklore. There's several ways in which he's presented like this, quoting the fable about the 3 little pigs and making himself the big bad wolf.
You need to open this door, man, for a huff and puff.
The standoff between him and Brother Mazzone being presented like an Old West standoff. And of course, a folk melody announcing his arrival, a Baltimore fanfare. Of course, this mythic presentation of his character is shattered by his death, where he's just popped in the head by Kennard, an essentially random kid. The power of music in a social context is exemplified in this scene from Season 4, Episode 9. The context of the scene is that, as a reward for their performance in a group task earlier, police officer turned field researcher Bunny Colvin takes 3 corner kids, including Naaman Bryce, the son of a high-level Barksdale drug dealer Weebay, to an expensive steakhouse. The drive to the steakhouse is rather positive, with the kids excited to try something new. On the car radio is playing Billie Holiday's I Cover the Waterfront, a 1933 song that is best known for her recording, about watching the ocean, waiting for one's lover to come home.
I see the horizon, the great unknown.
This is the interaction between Naaman and Bunny on the way to the restaurant.
Yo, who you listening to?
It's Lady D. Billie Holiday.
Man, she sound good. You know, real sad kind of. Yeah, I'm like that. You be thinking I'm more ghetto and then I flip it. Mess your mind all up.
Then they enter the restaurant, and things quickly become uncomfortable, their unfamiliarity with the etiquette and the environment making them feel overwhelmed and out of place, tying into the title of the episode, Know Your Place. All the while we hear, albeit quietly, Highway 14 by Alan Pasqua. It's a pretty jazz piano trio piece, but the music contributes to making them feel overwhelmed and out of place. It's music that, to these kids, reeks of refinement and a world that they're not part of. As soon as they leave the restaurant, a grumpy Naaman switches the radio station and turns it up, playing Pop in My Collar by 3 6 Mafia, a song that he uses to obscure thinking about the event, but also to affirm his identity. Hip-hop is his world, something which Colvin, an ex-police officer, could never understand. 3 corner kids in a car playing this song with one cop puts, in Naaman's eyes, Colvin in the awkward out-of-place position that the kids felt at the restaurant. Of course, Colvin grew up in the Western District too, so it's not even that it would work to make him feel out of place. It's just that it affirms Naaman's identity as a corner kid, in contrast to Colvin. The whole absurdity of this episode is that, really, all 3 pieces heard here could be interpreted in the same way. Billie Holiday, who Naaman plays 3 6 Mafia as a rejection of, grew up in incredibly tough circumstances in, of all cities, Baltimore. There's even a statue dedicated to her in the city's Upton neighbourhood. 3 6 Mafia are from Memphis, and I'm not saying that they had easy lives or anything, but Billie Holiday's hometown is literally the same as Naaman's. She also famously had severe problems with drugs and alcohol, including heroin, perhaps having more in common with the world of The Wire than Naaman realises. Even in the restaurant, although Alan Pasqua, whose track it is playing, is white, jazz is fundamentally an African-American art form. This isn't to say that Naaman should have realised this and reacted differently, but it shows The Wire highlighting the socially created constraints of what different music is supposed to mean to different people, and how music is reified into meaning just one thing. Picking the right theme song for the show was among the challenges that the creators faced, but they would eventually settle on choosing A Song by Tom Waits. David Simon had been a long-time Waits fan, and Waits' focus on the downtrodden of society, poverty, and criminality made his work very thematically fitting for The Wire, fitting their brief of music that captures the mood of a broken world. But this raised the question of which Waits song to use. Initially, they were looking at the song Get Behind the Mule, and they felt that they definitely had the right guy, but the song wasn't the right one.
Chopper and shops, the axe in the woods. You got to meet me by the fall down tree.
Simon and executive producer Bob Colesbury agreed that the voice and the emotion of the song fit like a glove, but something about the lyrics felt off initially. Eventually, they would settle on Way Down in the Hole, a 1987 song off Waits' album Frank's Wild Years.
You gotta keep the devil way down in the hole.
A tight TV schedule meant that the showrunners were crossing their fingers that Waits would actually approve the song in time for airing, but luckily he did, and Way Down in the Hole became the theme song of The Wire. But this then raised another question. Which version of the song should they use? Waits' original is great, but Simon felt it important to use an African-American recorded version in the first series of the show, and found already in his collection one by the Alabama-based gospel group, the Blind Boys of Alabama.
If you walk through the garden, you better watch your back.
The song hears the cries of an evangelist, singing of turning to Jesus and turning away from the devil. I think it's interesting that it pits good and evil so diametrically opposed, since a key theme of the show is that there's good and evil on both sides of the law. The opening line, when you walk through the garden, could be referring to a number of biblical gardens, likely the Garden of Eden, where the temptation into sin caused a fall from grace, a fall from paradise and utopia.
Makes me sick, motherfucker, how far we done fell.
Or it could be referring to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus was betrayed by Judas. A different version of the song was used in each season of the show, with Waits' original being used in the second season. In the fourth season, which centres on Baltimore's schools, an actual group of Baltimore teenagers were brought in to record a unique version of the song to enhance the realism even further.
When you walk through the garden, watch your back, well I beg your pardon.
The fifth and final season of the show features a version by cast member and musician Steve Earle. In his own words, he begged to be able to do the version for season 5, since he knew it would be his last chance. He aimed to create a broken down street sound, which Simon felt was perfect for the theme of homelessness in the 5th season. Steve Earle has heaped praise on Tom Waits, calling him a hero to songwriters of his generation.
Gotta help me keep the devil way down in the hole.
Beyond the confines of what happens on screen, music has influenced The Wire off screen in more ways than is often realised. One of the things that The Wire is lauded for is its casting. We've already mentioned Michael K. Williams, but can you imagine anyone other than Idris Elba as Stringer Bell or Wendell Pierce as Bunk? The chemistry between the actors was an essential component in making the relationships shown on screen feel like real, human relationships. And one of the most important of these relationships is between the two top members of the Barksdale gang, Avon and Stringer, played by Wood Harris and Idris Elba respectively. Idris Elba has spoken about how music fostered their relationship off-screen and how this translated into the show. Idris Elba has been involved with music quite a bit over the years, and found out doing the show that Wood Harris was also into music, and they'd hang out together and write songs and raps together off-screen. Unfortunately, they don't have these songs anymore, but he's credited the artistic relationship built in these songwriting sessions as creating a chemistry that translated on screen. This isn't the only example of two actors in the show creating music off-screen. Although it has less on-screen relevance, Clark Peters, the actor for Lester Freeman, and Reggie Cathy, the actor for Carcetti's aide Norman Wilson, used to play together off-screen, with Cathy playing sax and guitar, and Peters playing the piano and guitar. Like an artistic invasion, musicians seem to be in every single corner of The Wire. There are two particularly famous examples of this, but there are more as well. Method Man, of Wu-Tang Clan fame, starred as Cheese, and this had a couple of off-screen impacts as well. In one instance, when the crew asked the local family to turn their music down so they could get a shot, the family refused, saying that their neighbourhood wasn't a film set. Only when Method Man stepped in did the family finally relent, but specifying that they were doing it for him, not the crew. The other famous example is the aforementioned singer-songwriter Steve Earle, who played Walton in The Wire, a recovering heroin addict who played a significant role in Bubble's recovery. Although these are the two most famous examples of musicians in the cast, they are by no means the only ones. For example, Fredro Starr, who played Bird, and Anwan Glover, who played Slim Charles, are both primarily rappers before they're actors. There's a couple of other interesting music-related facts about The Wire off-screen as well. Bodie Broadus' surname is a nod to Snoop Dogg's real name, Calvin Broadus. It was conjured up while the creators were listening to Snoop's Gin and Juice. The famous photo of all The Wire's black cast members together was the idea of Bubbles actor Andre Royo and Bunny's actor Robert Wisdom, inspired by the famous photo A Great Day in Harlem, which portrayed 57 jazz musicians together on 126th Street in Harlem. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you subscribed, liked and left a comment. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say, and I do reply to all of my comments. And again, thank you very, very much for watching.